Hey, I'm Rob from JTRPodcast.com, and this is my first impressions of Holmes, Sherlock and Mycroft, which is a two-player only set collection worker placement game where you place workers. You have these little meeples that you place on the board, as you can see there, and use those to get these clue tokens, which you can then exchange for cards, and you're trying to collect sets of these cards and try and outscore your opponents. Let's take a look at the board and see how the game plays. So you can see the board, this is it, it's a very tiny one. The game's played over 7 days, which is basically 7 rounds. You can see there's some cards here already. You've got Dr. Watson, Mrs. Hudson and Inspector Lestrade, and they have their own spaces. They always start on those spaces there. And players are not only going to have their 3 meeples to start with, they're also going to have 5 of these investigation markers, they're called, not clue tokens, but they do the same thing. They're like a resource in the game. And when you start the game in the first round, you're going to reveal 2 of these character cards here, so it's going to give you another 2 actions to take. So there's going to be 5 spaces in round 1, and round 1 works a little bit differently to rounds 2 and 7. So I'm going to go through round 1, then I'll show you the differences between round 1 and round 2, and then by the time I've told you that, you'll get the gist and you'll know exactly what to do. So let's go back to the board. So in the first round, what you'll do is you take one of your meeples and you'll lay it down on any one of the 5 actions available. So let's just say I go to Watson. We'll go through them all in order. So I'll start at Watson. You lay down a meeple. And as you might be able to see there, Watson's ability says -1 investigation token to gain a card. So you would spend an investigation token, that would be put out to back to the supply. And off to the side of the main board is going to be the clue deck with all the clue cards in. You'll take 4 of them, lay them out face up, and so they're going to have 4 face up, and they're going to have the deck face down. The cards themselves are numbered 1 to 9. And the only reason they are numbered 1 to 9 is there's 2 reasons. One is so you can differentiate between the cards, so they've all got a different colour. For example, 9 is blue. Let me show you this under this camera a bit better. So 9 there's a thumbprint, 8 is a footprint, then a button, a bullet for 6, cigarette for 5, dynamite for 4, and some kind of seal for 3. So not only do the different numbers have different numbers, obviously, they're associated with a different colour, but also the number is how many of those cards are in the deck. So obviously this number 3 is very, very rare. Also in the deck are these wild cards. You've got all the different clues on the front of those. There are also these map pieces, which gives you a bit of a set collection mini game going on there. So you can see here, depending how many you've got at the end of the game, so how many points you'll score. If you've only got 1, you'll get -1. If you've got all 5, you'll get 10 points. So taking the Dr. Watson action, you will spend 1 investigation token, you'll take a card face up, you put it face up in front of you, and you put all the cards of the different numbers in their own little column, so you can see how many you've got, and your opponent can see how many you've got as well. And once you've placed your meeple and you've done the action on the card, and then you've replaced any cards you've taken from the face-up clue cards available, the next person will take their turn. So they go to Mrs. Hudson. Mrs. Hudson gives you 3 clue tokens. That's it. And then the next person will go to Inspector Lestrade. They can spend 3 clue tokens, and they can take 2 cards face-up from those available. And then these 2 are different. So obviously all the cards in this deck are based on characters from the books. There's Toby, Porky, Billy, Langdale Pike, Wiggins, Irene Adler, she's very nasty, Violet Hunter, and then here we've got Von Cram and Inspector Gregson. And there are 2 pages in the rulebook that tell you what they all do. I would have liked a little crib sheet, maybe just 2 small crib sheets with just the name and the ability on, just so we can easily look at them, but that's fine, just handing the rulebook back and forth was okay. So these obviously have different abilities, so you can see Inspector Gregson, you can spend 2, 4 or 6 investigation tokens to get 1, 2 or 3 cards face up from those available. And Von Cram's action is a bit different because it involves both players, and there's a few that do that. So let's look at this one. So this one says, if the player who takes the action, say the blue player takes the action, they'll be able to take 1 face-up card from those available, and then the other player, their rival, as they're known in the game, will be able to spend 1 investigation token to take a card from the top of the deck. So when you take a card from the top of the deck, it doesn't go into its respective stack, so I wouldn't put this card into the stack of 9 cards that I had, if I had any at all. It would remain in its own stack face down, and these are assigned to their relevant pile at the end of the game. So play goes back and forth, everybody taking their actions, resolving them, putting meeples on them, and here they go, all the actions have been taken, so the day is complete. Then what you do is you look for characters that both players have used, so you can't go on the same character more than once, so you need to keep that in mind when you're playing. But any character that's got 2 meeples on them will be turned face down. They have left the city for the end of the day, or they're on the run. They have gone away, so this is what would happen. This action is now unavailable for the next day. Of course, at this point, any that are face down from the previous round will get turned face up as well. And then what you do is you stand up all the meeples on the board, and then you put a new card out for a new day. Yes, it is. There we go. Toby. And with this new round, you are now going to take your meeple, and you can put it anywhere, obviously not where you've already got meeples of your colour, and you'll lay it down so you know you've activated that meeple this round. And that's pretty much how the game plays. You'll play adding new actions until the end of the 7 days. When you get to the end of that round, the game will end. Actions are going to turn up and down depending on how much they've been used, except the 3 to begin with. So if we look at Lestrade again, same for Mrs. Hudson and Dr. Watson, they are double-sided, so you don't turn them face down. They are always available, and they are the same on both sides as well. And at the end of the 7 days the game ends, you then kind of work out your piles. You look for your face-down cards, and you assign those to the piles you've got. So if you've got face-down 9 and 8, you would put them in your 9s and 8s you've collected that are face-up. If you haven't got any, then you'll just start new piles. The only thing is the wild card. The wild card cannot be placed face-down. So if you get one and you would place it face-down, instead you have to place it face-up and assign it to one of your piles. Now you can't have more than one wild card per pile, so you need to be careful with that. The other thing about the wild card as well is it is quite dangerous to have because it is worth -3 points if you're unable to put it into a pile. If you have one unassigned to a pile of cards, then it's going to cost you 3 points. You then score the maps, and you look at those. As I said earlier, if you've got 1, you get -1 point. If you've got 3, you get 3 points. If you've got all 5, you'll get 10 points. And then you score the rows of cards that you've been collecting. Now, they are done based on how many you've got compared to how many your opponent's got. So let's just say I've got these 2 6s, and you've got 3 6s. You've got 4. You've got 3 plus a wild card. 4 minus 2 is 2. You'll score 2 points for the 6s. And you work out each pile like that, going through each one and scoring the points in that way. Now, if you've got absolute majority, meaning you've got all the cards in a set, so you've got all 3 3s or all 9 9s, if that is indeed possible, then you'll score bonus 3 points per full set. Obviously, the player with the most points wins, but there is some other things here as well. This is the Sherlock and Mycroft card. So what you do is, after you've decided who is going first, you give this to the player that's going second. They can pick a side. They can be either Sherlock or Mycroft. And what this lets them do is they can reserve a card face up, and they put it sort of horizontal in their play area so that you know you've reserved it. You can only reserve one at a time, and as an action you could take that card, when you go to take an action, say you take this Inspector Lestrade action, as one of the 2 cards you can take the card that you've reserved, and then you'll flip the card over, pass it to your opponent, and then they get the ability to take a card as well. Also, the bad guys are in the game. These are quite nasty. These do bad things. You can shuffle these into the deck along with the regular actions. So you could have Moriarty next to Toby. That would be a bit unfair. But so what Moriarty does is that he makes you get rid of either clue cards or investigation tokens. So he's going to slow you down a bit, which is bad. And also, Sebastian Moran does the similar sort of thing. He makes you lay down a worker, which is not a good thing because you only get 3 actions per round. You're only getting 21 in the game, and to lose one, maybe more, is bad, but these do affect both players. So that's it. So this is a really enjoyable 2-player game. It's a much more of a full game rather than kind of a small game that's made for 2 players like Patchwork. I think I'd count that as sort of a lighter game for 2 players, whereas this is a bit more like Jaipur, a bit more of a full worker placement set collection game thing where you feel like you are actually doing a lot. All the characters are great. They are actually thematic as well. So if I could find Langdale Pike there, Langdale Pike even is a journalist, so he's going to have all the information, and so he of course gives you clue cards for cheap. You can get loads of clue cards from him because he's a source of information. It's great. Irene Adler is horrible. She lets you steal cards from your opponent because she's a horrible person, and she is in the book, she is in the TV show, she is in everything. So there you go. So that's the sort of things we're dealing with. All the actions are different. They're going to come out in a different order every time. You're never going to play the same game twice, which is always a good thing, especially in a 2-player game. Now, I don't play 2-player games very often, which is the only downside to this, but if I show you the box, it's not very big. You can stick it in your bag easily. You could even put it in another game. I'm sure some of these games up here that you can see behind me will have enough space inside them to fit this tiny little box in, so you can take it with you wherever you go. It only takes 30 minutes. I'm pretty sure if you play that a lot, if you play it with your partner or whoever regularly, you'll probably get that down to at least 15 minutes. Just play 3 actions and that's it, go on to the next day and keep going till the end of the game. I like the sort of tactical play of this as well. So you've got all the different actions. Obviously there's some you want to take. Maybe I want to take Mrs. Hudson, but I'm the blue player and I can't because I've already got a meeple there because I used her in the last round. So I'd have to move this one away to take another action. I can't take that one. That one's unavailable. I can't take that one. So I have to move them either there or there. So say I move them there, spend an investigation token, I get a nice clue card, and then my next action, I would obviously lie down, and then maybe this player goes here. And then next time, I can do that. So that's really good. Kind of working your way around the different actions as well. The way they all do different things. So maybe you need to get some clues before you can go to Lestrade. Maybe get some clues from Hudson before you go to Lestrade to spend them to get cards. And the way you have to do that back and forth, but you have to sort of time it and sort of plan ahead where you're going to put your meeples and how you're going to do it. That's all very, very clever. It's a really, really fun game. Really enjoyed it. That is Holmes, Sherlock and Mycroft. Remember to like, share and subscribe. You can follow me on Twitter at JTRPodcast to find the blog and podcast at JTRPodcast.com. I've been Rob, aka Jesta ThaRogue, and I'll see you soon.